Now there's no denying that the new CR-V looks quite good, but of course it has a big challenge ahead of it. It has to go ahead and try and take some sales away from the Toyota RAV4 Hybrid, because this is exactly what this is trying to compete against. It is a hybrid family 5-seater SUV, and it's of similar size, but to be honest, I think this might be the better pick out of the two, especially if you're left on a big waiting list for the RAV4 and you can go out and buy one of these instead. Now, yes, it's true, the RAV4 Hybrid can be bought for less money and with less features, so if you just want the hybrid powertrain and you want to spend the least amount of money possible, you don't care about any fancy features, you're better off buying the Toyota. Now, if you are in the budget for around $60,000 for a top spec RAV4 Hybrid or a top spec Honda CR-V, well, Honda's hoping that all the nice features they throw at you here will make this a more attractive option than a Toyota RAV4 Hybrid in its top spec. RS means a lot of things for different car brands, but here it does not mean that you're getting a faster, more exciting racetrack or race sport or Rennsport focused car. Instead, this is just a trim for something that looks better, more aggressive, and comes with nicer features. So that means you're getting this blacked out badge here, you're getting LED lights up top, you're getting this Honda badge with blue highlighting around it, and of course, like I said, that RS badge there as well. And you do get this pretty nice looking exterior, and this red paint also looks quite nice as well and is a standard color. Now here is your 2-liter naturally aspirated motor, and it's paired up to 2 electric motors and paired up to an eCVT transmission. So this is a pretty basic motor, and of course there's no turbocharging under here, so this should be a pretty simple motor to keep running, and it's also very cheap to service. Honda says it should only cost you around $199 per service every 12 months or every 10,000 kilometers. Now you're getting these black 19-inch wheels, which look quite good, contrasting against this paint here. You also have these contrasting black mirrors. You also do have keyless entry and locking via a buttonless system, which feels a bit more upmarket. And of course, these rear doors do open to pretty much 90 degrees, which is good for getting kids in car seats or anything out of the back here. And of course, you do have these roof rails up top and a nice amount of ground clearance as well. And I'm a big fan of the CR-V's boxy shape, because in traditional SUV form, that means you get more interior space and more boot space without this thing trying to look like a coupe. But the biggest downside to buying the CR-V compared to a RAV4 Hybrid is that this is front wheel drive only. There is no power being sent to the rear wheels, which might be a bit of an issue if you do want to go to the snow, for example. Now here at the back, love the taillights. They look a little bit like a Volvo taillight on the back of an XC60 or XC90, except they have these little elements down here, and they look quite good, but except it's a bit annoying that you get halogen indicators at the rear, especially since the fronts get some pretty nice LED indicators. Now you get contrasting black elements around the rear spoiler. You also get a little rear wiper, blue Honda badges, another RS badge, and a badge down here to let everyone know that you're driving a hybrid Honda in case they missed this blue badge. And what's interesting to me is that you do have these dual exhaust exits, except this one is fake, but this one isn't. Now you get this massive tailgate here, which opens up quite a bit from the car, so you do have to make sure you don't park too close to a wall. But here you have 581 liters of boot space, so there is a ton of boot space back here, and I like how flat and even the load floor is, so it should be easy to get items in and out. You've also got some little pockets either side, and you do have some storage underneath the boot floor for smaller items, but you do not get a spare tire in the Hybrid. Instead, you get the tire repair kit that comes on most modern cars. Now you do get this pretty nifty cover here to cover up the rear, and you can take that out entirely. And if you do fold the seats down in a 60-40 split, you'll get 1,636 liters total of boot space. And you also get a 12-volt power socket back here as well. So it's good in terms of being able to store items vertically thanks to this very tall boot, but the thing that's a bit annoying is that yes, it doesn't come with a spare tire. Now what's interesting is that you do have a button here which has a little person walking away from the back of the Honda CR-V tailgate, and if you press that and walk away, it will automatically shut the tailgate. But then if you have your hands full and walk up to the closed tailgate, you can just swipe your foot underneath the rear here and it will open automatically. Now in terms of fuel economy, the Honda CR-V is quoted to be able to sip fuel at just around 5 liters per 100 kilometers. Now I achieved around 6 liters per 100 kilometers in my combined test driving around here, so I would see that to be quite achievable if you're out on the highway most of the time. And thanks to that hybrid battery, it shouldn't be too hard to hit if you're in bumper to bumper traffic. And what's cool as well is that this will take 91 RON, which is good because that is the most affordable, or one of the most affordable fuels you can buy here in Australia. Now there's a ton of space here in the back of the CR-V. If I slide across, I have a pretty nice even load floor here here in the back. And if you sit in the middle seat, you will have decent amounts of feet room, but you are sitting a bit higher up because it's sitting on a bit of a mound. Now here, I do have a nice big armrest, and these seats do recline quite a lot, so you can get really comfortable in the back of a CR-V, and I think these seats are a bit more comfortable than a Toyota RAV4. Now you get some basic reading lights up here, you have some air vents, 2 USB-C ports, a map pocket on either side, and some storage down here on the door bins. Now here's my biggest complaint. This back seat here squeaks. As I was driving along, it kept squeaking like this, and it's just really frustrating because if I was going to spend $60,000 on a Honda, I'd expect Honda build quality like I experienced in the Honda HR-V and the Honda Civic, which I thought are really well built because those are built in Japan. This is built in Thailand, so I'm just wondering if there's a different quality control there, because it does not feel like that same quality control found in the HR-V and the Civic has made its way into the new HR-V. Any squeaks and rattles would be things I would take to a dealership to get checked out. Now, do the windows in the back go down all the way? Let's check that out. Not really, they go down most of the way. Now up front, oh, these seats are sublime. We're getting red stitching, leather on the seats, leather on the steering wheel, and around the cabin. We're getting some nice soft touch materials up top. I really do like this center screen here because I love the texture on top of it. It doesn't really attract too many fingerprints, and it's also very crisp and easy to use. And some people do like the screen angled towards the driver, but I prefer the central display because it means my passenger can interact with it comfortably. Now we get the same interior layout we're seeing on new Honda cars, which is great because I love the sounds these all make. I love how everything is a physical control, and if you really need to dive into the center screen, it's only going to be things for any sort of settings. If you want to see some diagnostics on your power flow for your hybrid powertrain, or you want to use Apple CarPlay. Otherwise, all your crucial controls are physical controls. Now down here we have a USB Type A port, USB Type C, some wireless charging. We also have a 12-volt socket. We also have a giant shifter here with red stitching on it, and it's very easy to use. And we also have a B mode to go into our battery regen mode. We also have hill descent control, drive mode controls, cup holders, a little area to store some items. We have a pretty decent sized center cubby which can hold a giant water bottle just like this. And the glove box is pretty average, with most of the space being taken up by this biblical sized owner's manual. Now the steering wheel can be adjusted telescopically, which is very easy to get comfortable. Like I said, these seats have amazing amounts of bolstering, and this thing is just really supple and really nice to sit in. They're like lounge chairs. These are so comfortable, and both the driver and passenger get electronic adjustment. Now the pedals have this metal look finish to them, which look quite nice, and you also get that metal look up here on the dash and across the doors as well. Now you do get some paddle shifters here, which I just really don't understand the use of paddle shifters in a CVT transmission, which doesn't really have any gears. So if you do want to sort of bring the revs up a bit more, you can downshift, but I never use these. I never found that you need to use them as well, and so I kind of wish they were more of an option and weren't here permanently on the steering wheel. We also do have a driver's display here, which gives you some basic information to cycle through and looks great. And also what's interesting is that we do have a sunglasses holder, but up here we have a little mirror, and so you can see in here yourself and also your other passengers, so if people are playing up in the back, you can keep an eye on them there. Now going back into build quality, check this out. There's a lot of movement here in the center console and around this center cubby, and I was hearing some rattling happening around in the back here as well. But the rest of the interior is pretty well built, and I'm pretty impressed with that. Now what I love about the new CR-V is that it's very well insulated from the outside world, and with this electric motor and pretty low stress naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, it's actually pretty relaxed and quiet on the daily grind. And to be honest, if you're playing things through these Bose speakers, you would hardly hear anything of the outside world. But the first complaint I have about this thing, and it's a major complaint, is a squeaky back seat. The rear right seat, for whatever reason, is very squeaky. You can sort of hear it when I go over some bumps happening in the background, and I tried to fix it, tried to reposition it all different ways, and it worked for a second, but now I'm back in the car and it's squeaking again. Now braking this thing is just ridiculously easy. There's not a lot of pitch forwards, which is quite nice, so it means that you can sort of glide to a stop a bit like a Mazda. And what's really impressive with this efficiency here is that this Honda says it has over 800 kilometers of range for the full tank of fuel that I have here in this car, which is an insane amount of range for a little family SUV with a 4-cylinder in it. So that is a major plus for opting for the hybrids, that you're gonna get pretty impressive range per tank of fuel you put in this thing. Now look, suspension, really comfortable. Seats, very comfortable. The whole thing about the new CR-V is that it feels like it's just focused on comfort and also feeling a little bit more upmarket compared to the previous generation CR-V. Now, I wasn't a huge fan of the previous generation CR-V. I thought it lacked a little bit of soul or any sort of attention to detail there, where this one just feels like a massive step up in terms of design, in terms of just comfort, interior space, packaging, and also just the layout of the switchgear here and the quality of the switchgear as well. It just feels like a really nice car to drive around in, and it no longer feels like a weird alternative to a Toyota RAV4. Instead, this feels like the nicer alternative to a RAV4. And so in terms of pickup, if you want to put your foot down a bit, those electric motors do pull forwards because we have 2 of them on board, but everything is sent to the front wheels only. This is not an all-wheel drive SUV. And for some people that might be annoying, considering that you can get the Toyota RAV4 Hybrid as an all-wheel drive setup, but the CR-V is only available as a front-wheel drive hybrid SUV, which can be a little frustrating to people who want that extra traction if they're going to places like the snow or frequent going off-road on gravel sections of road, say if you're going to a farm or something like that. Here on the gear lever, we have a B mode, which is for regen mode. So you can go into normal drive and just drive around this like a normal car, but you have this B mode, which is below drive, and you shift into that and you'll get more regen. So you can lift off the throttle and the car will sort of regeneratively brake a little bit as you slow down and sort of help feed a bit more of that energy back into the battery. And you can see here, there's another fuel gauge for the battery here on the left side, which is sort of constantly going up and down depending how much you're using it, which is pretty cool. But what I love is the instant torque from these electric motors. I can just sort of push down gently into the throttle and I can get moving quite quickly. So it doesn't seem that powerful on paper, but you do have a nice amount of torque available from 0 RPM to be able to get off the line pretty quickly. And now if you need to accelerate from say 40 kilometers an hour to 80 kilometers an hour, it feels pretty swift, and that eCVT motor is nice and just smooth. There's no awkward gear changes or anything like that, and you do have radar cruise control on board, so driving at highway speeds is no issue. And I think the best thing about the CR-V is its driving position. I feel nice and high up, and I feel like I've got heaps of visibility around the front here, and I don't feel too scared to make lane changes or anything like that. And even just looking over my right shoulder into my blind spot, I have plenty of visibility, and then also you do have blind spot monitoring just in case you miss anything. Right now I'm witnessing my average fuel consumption dropping rapidly. I'm now looking at around 8.4 liters per 100 kilometers, and it should drop even more as we keep going along this highway section here. I would recommend driving on Econ mode, which is like the eco mode, for 90% of your driving. Now you can just go into normal mode if you want just a bit more responsiveness from this car and you don't want to feel super sort of slowish, but you can just do that if you need on the fly thanks to this adjustable drive mode button here. But you can go into sport mode, which is really odd for a family SUV to have sport mode like this. And when you go, but the reason why I say it's odd is because listen to this. Excuse me? This sounded a lot like the sound generator in the Civic Type R that I was testing. I mean, let's take a listen to that again. Ready? 3, 2, 1, and... Okay, like, what? And listen. Okay, if I go into normal mode, this is what it always sounds like. So there's like a higher pitched sound to it in sport mode, which is kind of fun. But we'll leave it in sport mode to see just how much of a difference it makes in corners. So as I drive through this corner here, steering should tighten up a little bit, throttle response tighten up a bit as well. Honda have clearly engineered the new CR-V to corner very well. It's quite impressive how easy it is to move this car through corners at higher speeds. And yeah, for the most part, I was quite shocked going through some big sweeping bends, and even going through a bend like this, it gets a tiny bit of body roll, but it sort of settles right on a spot and it doesn't continue to sort of spill over the edge when you keep cornering. So look, very impressed with the cornering ability and handling of the CR-V for a family SUV, which should be a good thing if you're going through some tight sections of road on a long road trip, for example. But then as you go up through a hill and we go to accelerate up this hill, I have no doubt that if you get the hybrid, that if you are hauling people and luggage, there should be a fine amount of power to have loaded up, and then you should feel like you have enough power to still get up a hill. It doesn't feel like it's gutless at all. But then you can go in normal mode and you can sort of dial everything back and you can feel the car sort of relax a bit more. But then I always leave this in econ mode because you're driving a 4-cylinder, naturally aspirated, hybrid family car. You really don't need to be exploring the limits of this car through sport mode. And to day-to-day driving, econ mode's great. And what's cool as well is that here on the dashboard, it will tell you when the car is going into EV mode, so you can see just when you're driving electric power, because sometimes you won't know. So now we're in EV mode, and this is how seamless it is to go into petrol. Ready? Could you sense the transition? Could you hear that? If you could, well done. But honestly, that transition is so incredible. When I was driving the Kia Sorento Hybrid, that was a very, very harsh transition, and you could hear it, and that was a big detractor for me driving that car. Now, would I buy this over a Toyota RAV4 Hybrid? Well, if those squeaks and rattles were exclusive to this car only, or if I easily got them fixed at a dealership and they don't happen anymore, I would easily pick the CR-V Hybrid over a Toyota RAV4 Hybrid in terms of an inner city runabout and even a good road trip machine. But if I wanted all-wheel drive, or I didn't care for all the fancy features here, I would have to go and buy the Toyota RAV4, because that's where that beats this.